Hello again, everyone. Again, I'm Dr. Mark Fandel, Professor Fandel at Horry Georgetown Technical College. I'm making these videos for my classes. I'm making this in the fall semester of 2021. We are using a new edition, the newest edition of McGraw Hill, and so we're in the middle of making some videos to go over these subjects. We're in Chapter 1. This portion of Chapter 1 is going to be about the different organ systems. We're going to just kind of do a brief overview of the different organ systems. So back in the first video, the early part of Chapter 1, we talked about the organization of the body. How we start up from, you've got subatomic particles that get together to make atoms. Atoms make molecules. Molecules macromolecules, and on down the line. The last step before the organism was the organ systems. So we're going to look at the organ systems just as a brief overview right now. Now, again, if you're in 210, this should be what you had for most of your prerequisites. So I'm hoping that all of us have a base knowledge of these, because I would think that even people that haven't had prereqs anyway, they would know, hopefully, that the brain is in the nervous system, that bones are in the skeletal system. Skeletal muscle only, this can kind of get tricky, is in the muscular system. The heart's in the cardiovascular system. So some of the basic things I'm hoping that most people would know anyway. So let's get into it. I'm actually going to take my little picture off here. So the first system, which is the first system we actually look at once we finally get into seeing some of these systems, the first system we see is the integumentary system. Now, it can, if you're sloppy, be called the skin. Now, if you went to a dermatologist and they told you that your professor called it the skin, they would not be happy with the school. But right now, we'll look at why it's not called that when we get in there. But for right now, that is kind of a good mental image of what it is. It is far more than that. The skin's a specific part. I want to make sure we know that. But the integumentary system is what covers our body, and it has a lot of different things it does. One of the main ones is body temperature regulation, and we looked at that when we were looking at the homeostasis. But we'll see different things about it. But basically, the integumentary system, for lack of a better way to describe it, is the skin. But when we get into it, like I said, we'll get more specific. Skeletal system, hopefully everyone knows the skeletal system is mainly these organs that we call bones, and they provide movement and support, a framework. This is where we're going to store inorganic salts, and there's several of them, but obviously the main one is this inorganic salt called calcium. And we'll look at that, and this is how our body, it's like a big storage cellar, that when we have extra calcium, it's stored there. When we're low on calcium, it raids it. But this is also where we're going to have our hemopoietic stem cells, which is a fancy way of saying the cells that end up being able to make blood cells, all blood cells, white blood cells, red blood cells, and even platelets. But this is where they are formed. Then we get into the muscular system. And like I said at the opening, one of the weird things to understand is this is only skeletal muscle. For instance, cardiac muscle is going to be found only in the heart, and we'll see the heart as part of its own system. Smooth muscle is making up organs in general, and the whatever organ it's making up, that'll be in that system. So the muscular system really is skeletal muscle, and we're going to see a lot of really cool things about skeletal muscle as we move along. But obviously, support and movement, that is why these two together are generally and sometimes commonly called the skeletal muscular system, the musculoskeletal system, because they really work hand in hand for support and movement. But this is going to provide body heat, which we need, and several other things, but the main thing, again, support and movement, is the muscular system. As we move along, we see these pictures. I got to get used to these slides. So the integumentary system is just showing the skin, the skeletal and muscular system as they work together hand in hand. to provide support and movement, but other things in general as well. Then we get to the controller, the nervous system, all right? So the nervous system is basically the control center. The nervous system is just absolutely amazing in what all it does and the amount of things it does that we are not aware of. Again, we're only consciously aware of a small amount of the things that the nervous system does. Um, thank Thank God, because you don't want to have to sit there and have your heart beat, and then breathe, and then digest, and I need to release these enzymes. Your body at the subconscious level, this nervous system is dealing with a vast amount of information that is staggering, even to people that are used to information sciences with massive supercomputers. Our nervous system still blows them away. What the nervous system doesn't control directly, it controls indirectly through its control of this thing called the endocrine system. The endocrine system is made up of glands mainly that release hormones. And where the nervous system is quick to turn on and quick to turn off, the endocrine system is slow to turn on and slow to turn off. And so there's a real go-between these two systems, the nervous system and the endocrine system. So when we look at this, the nervous system here, the brain, spinal cord, and then the spinal nerves that come off of it, and then these two show the different endocrine organs from male and female. And one of the things as we look at these systems, the reproductive organs or the endocrine organs that are in male and female are also going to be associated with the reproductive system. So there's some crossover on this. Then we get how our body's going to transport things and clean things. We have what's called a cardiovascular system, which is the heart and blood vessels. It's going to be moving these gases, nutrients, as it says through here, by way of using the blood and the blood vessels. It is going to drop off nutrients and pick up waste. But while it's doing that, and it's pretty cool how they interconnect, we have this lymphatic system, which is kind of the cleaning system of the body. And it is a cousin or a kind of spin-off of the cardiovascular system. And so as the blood goes through the capillaries, we're going to have plasma carrying oxygen pushed out on the arterial end, pushed out by filtration, and then as it goes out, drops off the oxygen, it's going to be pulled back in by osmotic pressure on the venous end, and as that happens, it's pulling in plasma with carbon dioxide. Now, there's a little bit of the fluid that exits in the circulatory system in this capillary bed that doesn't get brought back in, and it builds up. And that's where the lymphatic system starts. That buildup of tissue fluid gets drained into the lymphatic system at that point called lymph. And when it does that, it's pulling any little particles and debris that are in between those cells in the interstitial fluid, the fluid between the cells, and it pulls it into there and it sends it through cleaning areas that we call lymph nodes. And this is how our body's fighting disease. It's a really interesting and amazing thing. But the cardiovascular system and the lymphatic system work together. We'll see that in the lymphatic system, there's also a special part that is designed to digest fats because of the fact that the fatty acid molecules are really big and we don't break those down. Like everything else, we have proteins broken down to amino acids, carbohydrates broken down to simple sugars, monosaccharides. But the fatty acids are much bigger, so we use the lacteals, which is part of the lymphatic system, to absorb them. And again, you'll study that as you go along. This is showing them, and you'll kind of see that they're all, this is overlap pretty much hand in hand. So this is the circulatory system. This is the lymphatic system. Then we have these systems that are designed to absorb nutrients and get rid of them and balance it. So the digestive system is about taking in food. I'm going to take in food, I break it down, we call that digestion. Absorb the nutrients that we need, get rid of the byproducts that we can't use or don't need. Respiratory system is about moving in and air in, where the digestive system is taking in food. The respiratory system is trying to take in oxygen. So I take in oxygen, I breathe out carbon dioxide and water. And we'll see how that works when we get to it a little later on, because it's a pretty amazing thing. But the respiratory system is about moving in air in and out. And then the urinary system is going to have the blood go through it, and it's going to separate the blood. Basically, the majority of plasma gets pulled out, and it goes through a tube that's designed to clean it. 180 liters of fluid go through your kidneys every 24 hours on average. That's 92-liter Coke bottles, and it gets filtered. And the urinary system with the kidneys and this nephron are regulating. They're pulling out electrolytes, making sure the electrolytes and water balance is correct and the pH is correct, and it excretes the excess, the waste products and the excess water that we have as we go through and clean the body. These are the pictures of them, right? So we've got the digestive system here. We have the respiratory system here, the urinary system here. Again, these are bringing things in, using them, getting rid of waste products, and also regulating and maintaining a stable internal environment. Then we have the reproductive system. The reproductive system has a lot of wide-ranging things, but kind of the main thing it's meant to do is produce a special type of cell that we refer to as, in this, it's a sex cell or a gamete. This cell has to have half of the normal genetic material. The normal cell has 46 chromosomes. These can only have 23, so that when they get together, they will combine and then form a whole cell, which has 46 chromosomes. Sperm comes from males. Oocytes, which are a special way of saying eggs, are coming from females. When that gets together, that is a new cell. That is a brand new life form. When the egg and sperm get together, that is the beginning of a unique strand of DNA that has not been around. And so that is a unique life form. Now, when we look at them, they have male and female, and they're different. They produce different hormones, but they also produce different gametes. Like I said, male sperm, female is oocytes, and I use that scientific name. Not that I kind of have to force myself. I would commonly say eggs, but that is later on you'll find when you talk about meiosis that that if you know that the egg is scientifically called an oocyte, the creation of eggs, called oogenesis, just falls into place. But again, these systems, I'm not too worried about you knowing all about them right now, just the highlights, so that if I ask anything, you'd say, yeah, but I would ask the big bullet point items. So if we look at all of these systems together, like we said in the opening video, how organ systems work together to form the organism, you will see that they're very different, but they are totally intertwined. You cannot take one away and still have the organism. So I hope that makes sense. And again, the main thing about this is I just want you to have the basic idea of what these are at this point. But this is what 210 and 211 really go into once we get the foundational information underneath our belt. All right. I hope everybody has a wonderful day. I hope that makes sense.